Yeah, my name's GOWE, gifted on Westies. How did I get started in hip-hop? I was just a big fan of music growing up. I think I was a really big fan of poetry. Poetry was something that stuck out to me because I thought it was really interesting and unique how you could take these non-tangible things called words and create these very vivid images and portraits and mosaics, and it was very fascinating. So I think that was one of the first things that captured my attention. And as a fan starting out, that was my creative outlet, and it started to become something that I really enjoyed doing. Eventually did it professionally, and that's where I'm at right now. Yeah. Yeah, how did I get involved with this tour? Chung, who is the brains behind the operation here, he reached out to me a while ago. It was through a series of events, actually. So I met Chung about 2 years ago in LA. We did a show together called Inspire, 2011 or 12. And afterwards, we just kept in touch, because I think as a Asian American hip hop artist, there's not Asian American Christian hip hop artists. It's hard to find other people like you that has a similar journey. So when you do find people that love the Lord that also have a similar calling, you guys just like to stick together. And so that's kind of what I did. You know, we just had a very organic kind of a friendship, and had a conversation earlier this year, and he said that he proposed the idea of me joining Good Fruit, which is a newly released, newly formed independent label. And so through a lot of prayer, counsel, conversations, decided to hop on board. He told me he started having this idea 2 years ago, so it's been 2 years in the making. Afterwards, when I came on board, he told me about the tour. I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to connect with my brothers again, because I live in Seattle and everyone else lives on the East Coast. So it was our time to connect, and so that's how I got involved. What am I looking forward to the most? I think I'm just looking forward to seeing music being used as a powerful medium, because I really do think it's something that's very powerful and it's very relatable. We can build these bridges with people through music, and they connect. So when you do share something with them, it has a little bit heavier weight. So I'm just in looking forward to seeing kind of lives be changed and to be touched through that art form. I think it's very beautiful. So, yep. So for me, I never grew up in the Christian household because my parents aren't saved. And you know, when I was younger, my grandmother made me go to this church because they taught you how to read and write Chinese. So I speak Cantonese fluently, but when it comes to reading and writing, I'm not good at that. You know, so when I was younger, they tried to get me to go, and I went, and they would try to implement the gospel, but it was a very hyper conservative church. So when we learned Chinese, no pun intended to Jin, we would go into the main area, and there'd be these pastors that are like 70 plus, suit and tie, no idea what they were talking about. And about 2 weeks into it, I was like, man, this is boring. Like, I'd rather watch X-Men, you know, on Sunday mornings. Like, what the heck is this? So I just fell away from the church, never really established myself in a church to begin with. And when I was 17, met this guy that, so outside of music, I'm really into professional wrestling. That's one of the things that I like, you know what I mean? And I met this dude, and he was into it too, and he turned out to be a youth pastor. I was like, what? I didn't know pastors could be young. Like, I thought you had to be 70 plus. I thought that was like a prereq. But he was just a regular guy, connected well with me, and I just had a lot of questions. You know, I don't think I ever doubted the existence of a higher being. And just through a series of questions, he answered them, and some people remember like the exact day they kind of, you know, gave their life to the Lord. For me, it was definitely a gradual process, and that's how I came to know Jesus. Yeah. See, I'm trying not to age him right now. Okay? Okay. But when I was in high school, I watched 106. Okay, funny story. I don't know if the artist told you this. Back in the day, before there was Facebook, MySpace, Zynga, we didn't have none of that. You know, like, I didn't even have internet growing up until I was maybe in junior high. So there's no established community like they do nowadays. So one day, I was sitting there, and you know, I was a big fan of hip-hop music growing up. I listened to a lot of the legends. And so one day I was like, my friend sent me this record called Got Rice, and it was like by these Asian rappers rapping over this Tupac beat. And I was like, what is this? Clicked on it, listened to it, thought it was garbage. But what it did do was it linked me to this website called AsianRaps.com. No longer exists, by the way. I checked the other day. So I went on there, and a lot of artists that are now performing used to be on the website. So like Jin was one of them, Far East Movement was another, Dumbfounded was another. So it was just like this little community that we used to just post little rap battles here and there. So that was the first time I got exposed to that. One day I was on the forum in the general discussion, and they said, yo, check out BET 106 in Park, Jin's going to be on. And I was like, oh, what is that? I never even heard of that. And so I tuned in and I watched them. And I remember I was with a couple of my friends, and, at the time, I feel like right now it's a lot better in terms of diversity within hip-hop. But back then, like, there was no Asians doing hip-hop on on a level, big level, small level. It was just kind of more of a stereotype. And so when he started breaking some of these barriers, I was like, oh, this is really dope. It just so happened that I had been writing even before I saw this. I knew I wasn't interested in battle rap, which is what he did. I was really interested in songwriting. But to see him do that, I was like, oh yeah, this might be something that could work moving forward. So that's kind of the impact. He kind of paved a little path there. We were talking at the airport today. I was like, yo, Pioneer. He was like, yo, man, making me feel aged right now. I was like, all right, tone it down. So that's his influence. Okay. So for me, my whole heart is for the lost. So I don't consider myself a Christian rapper as much as I consider myself a rapper that loves Jesus. And so when I write music, I try to write about topics that I feel like people can relate to. I don't feel like you need to be a Christian to know what love feels like. I don't think you need to be a Christian to know what pain feels like, to know what heartbreak feels like. And so when I write these songs, without compromising my faith, but I don't really talk about Jesus in every single song. In fact, it's through these songs and kind of different relationships that I build a bridge with them, and then I can share about the gospel. Like, I'm not shy to talk about my faith in social media, but I feel like once you build that emotional bridge, that's when your words have a little bit more impact than if you just right off the bat was like, yo, believe in Jesus or not, you're gonna go to hell if you don't. I just don't know if that's the best approach for me personally. Maybe it has a lot to do with the environment that I grew up in. In Seattle, it's very unchurched. And so that's kind of how my music plays a part. There's the only reason I do music is to glorify Jesus at the end of the day. I feel like this is a gift that he's entrusted me with. It doesn't belong to me. And one day when I'm before him, I will have to give an account for this gift. And to me, I take that very seriously. That's a really good responsibility. And that's kind of how my faith plays a part in music. And I just really want to see a lot more Asian Americans follow and pursue their dreams. And also to show people there's something a lot deeper, a lot more satisfying, a lot more gratifying than just partying on the weekends or getting drunk or hooking up with people. I feel like all these things will eventually lead you into a big circle, and it just never ends. There's something greater than that, So to instill positivity is a big part of why I do what I do. Yeah, so I told you, I didn't go to church until I was in high school, and so I remember when you first learn about Jesus, you're kind of knocking the door. You're like, hey, where can I learn more? Where can I learn more? And back then, there was a retreat in Canada, I remember, and the youth pastor, the same guy that likes pro wrestling, was like, hey, man, you should come. And I was like, yeah, I'm down. And I live in Seattle, so Vancouver is about a 2.5-hour drive north. But, it was right after 9/11, a little bit afterwards, so now security was hyper tight. So you needed, like, your birth certificate, your passport, your Washington State ID. Before, you just needed your Washington ID, you could get in and out. So I didn't have all those documents, so I reached out to my mom, and I asked her, hey, could you give me some of these documents? And I remember she just started fumbling and bumbling through her words, and that just kind of made me upset. So I was like, yo, I don't know exactly what you're hiding, but I do realize you've been hiding something ever since I was a kid. I just kind of picked up little things here and there, and eventually she called back and she talked to my grandmother. My grandmother's like, yeah, I think you should tell him. He's like 18. And so on the phone call, first thing she told me was that she wasn't my biological mother. So for me, that was just already hard enough to grasp. You're like, what? Like, if you woke up today and you found out your mom wasn't your real mom, that's already, a lot of things are turning in your head. And then to find out that I was like a different ethnicity on top of that, I was like, what? So I think for the longest time, I just chose to ignore it because it was too much to process. And even if you know what you are growing up as an Asian American, you're already struggling with a lot of identity issues just because, okay, am I Asian or am I American? Like, do I embrace my Asian side? Do I embrace my American side? You add another layer on top of that, and you'll just kind of go crazy. So for the longest time, my coping mechanism was to just ignore it. And, the biggest thing that helped me open up more and more to it was I don't have any siblings, so my girl cousins, my younger ones, I'm very protective of them. So I remember when they were getting in high school, they were starting to date and all that stuff, and I was just like, yo, who are these guys and all that. And I think what it did do was it triggered, because I found out my mom was 18 when she had me. So it really triggered me to think back and go, man, I wonder what my mom went through. And layers, just kind of unpeeled, and then there was an opportunity to perform on a stage that was pretty big at the time. And I thought, hey, what a great time to share about my story. I don't really care what people think anymore. I'm just going to come out and kind of share. And it touched people in a positive way, and that was a real blessing. So that's kind of how it impacted that. I think in society, there's a lot of man-made standards and norms and kind of expectations that you have to live up to. And to me, there's a lot of different definitions of fearless, but for me, there's a certain element of responsibility. I feel like if you know you're passionate about something, or if you know that you're put on this earth to do something, regardless of how it's perceived from the general public, as long as you have a deep desire to pursue something like that, my definition of fearlessness is to just go for that, because I feel like it's really easy for us to think about the what ifs or, yada, 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 but if you have something you're really passionate about, you got to go after it, And to me, I can't help but separate that from a calling from the Lord. And I feel like God has given us all very specific callings. I feel like He's very, our God is an awesome God in the sense that He created you with specific abilities and talents, and He can use you in mighty ways through them. And a lot of the times we wrestle with them. We're like, oh, well, I don't know if this is sustainable, or oh, I don't know if this is popular, or oh, I don't know if this or that. But if you really know what God has gifted you with, you should really pursue after that, because His plans are really the best for us. So for me, that's being fearless. Yeah. Thank you guys for having us. You guys have a huge building. I got lost multiple times. Glad to hear that the gospel is being preached here. I hope you guys continue to stand firm in your walks with the Lord, and don't be afraid to step out of your boundaries to make an impact for the kingdom. That's it.